Yes. Welcome back to the KJ from OC podcast. I am your host, KJ from OC. And it's been a while since I've been on here, but hey, I'm back and I'm doing another show talking about some things that have happened over the last month. And we're going to kick it off with LeBron James is now officially a Los Angeles Laker. Ah. You know what I find funny about this is one, people say he shouldn't have gone to LA and he should have stayed in Cleveland or should have gone to Philly, should have gone to Boston, should have gone to Houston, should have gone wherever, somewhere other than Los Angeles, because they say he's supposed to win championships and he's not going to win a championship in LA in the 4 years that he signed. 4 years, 130 something $1,000,000, $136 million. It's a lot of money. I don't think he's going there necessarily just to win championships. I think he's going there probably to finish out his career and then move into the next phase of his life, whatever that is. If it's producing movies, endorsement deals, business, whatever it is, it's LA, it's Hollywood, it's fame, and glamour and glitz. So, what a better place to do it in other than New York than LA. So, I don't blame dude for going there. I think it's a good choice overall because he has 3 championship rings. They're not from LA. Two are in one from Cleveland and 2 from Miami when he was with the Heat. So if he retires and has 3 rings, okay. I don't think that tarnishes his career or his legacy or anything like that. I don't think he has to be on the Kobe or Jordan or Shaq or Magic level. It's a different era now. Things are vastly different. There's a whole lot more player movement. I think he was on a horrible team when he was with Cleveland the first time for those, 7 or 8 years, and then he left. I don't blame dude for leaving. Other teams were getting free agents and building up teams to the draft, and your ownership was not doing a whole lot. So I don't blame you for leaving and going to Miami for 4 years and winning a couple of championships, because from the time you left Cleveland, I believe, to, let me see, is that right? Let me see. No, I think there was a year between when he was in the finals against the Spurs and then left in '08 and then, or whatever, '08, '09, and then was in Miami for those 4 years and then went back to Cleveland. But yeah, he was in the championship. He was in the finals like 7 or 8 times in a row. Like, that's crazy. And I think it was 9 overall, so like 8 in a row and 9 overall. And he's had a 15-year career. That kind of tells you this guy is on another level. He's on another plane. And I don't think many people, past, present, or future, will ever be able to reach that, especially in the current state of the NBA. I'm not talking about the old school Bill Russell, Bob Cousy teams where there were like 15 teams total or whatever. But I mean, with these 30 plus teams, to have someone in the finals this many times in a row and this many times overall in 15 years, that's pretty insane. So whether he gets to another finals or wins another championship or whatever, I think he's obviously a guaranteed Hall of Famer, first ballot, however that works in the NBA. I know way more about football than the NBA, but he's obviously going to be a Hall of Famer. And once he's done with basketball, it's on to the next one, you know? So LA is a great place to do that in, and I don't blame him for that. And if you're a Laker fan or a big Kobe fan, this probably upsets you, because someone that I've heard people have said, I was raised to hate LeBron, and I'm like, for what? He's not a bad guy. He's not Pac-Man Jones or Vontaze Burfict or some of these guys that get in trouble in the NFL. He's not a jerk to people, like punching people on or off the court or beating his wife or beating his kids. Like, this is a nice guy who does good things for people. He's a good family man. So it's like, why the hate? What do you actually hate about him? Is it that he complains to referees? Sure, every star does that. And once again, he's an employee of a company, and I don't know how many people that are employees of companies don't complain about certain things that happen while they're working or after work or before work or whatever. That just happens. So just remember, he's also an employee. He doesn't own the team or any of that. And even still, he should be able to say if he's getting mistreated. I mean, you've seen fouls not get called, so should the person just get back to work and that's it? I think that's kind of dumb. I think you should say something because if I'm getting fouled and I'm playing basketball, I want the ref to know, like, hey, dude just clothesline me, or hit me with an elbow, or this or that or the other thing. And I think what goes against that is that referees believe, or people just in general believe, that if you're a certain size, you should be able to take it. There were probably way more fouls that should have been called in favor of Shaquille O'Neal when he was getting defended by people, but because he was 7 foot plus and 320 plus pounds, people didn't call it because it just, even though it was actually a foul, it's because, oh, well, you're big, you're supposed to be able to handle that. Well, if it's a foul, it's a foul, regardless of size. And if you're equating size to how much a foul should be or not, then I think that's kind of the wrong type of officiating. But fouls are probably like holding in the NFL, where you could call it on every single play, and it is what it is. But yeah, if you hate LeBron for complaining at work, then you probably, I don't know, and you've never complained at work, then I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. But I just don't see a reason to hate the guy. He's not a bad guy. Sure, he left Cleveland the way he left Cleveland, but people leave jobs all the time. Granted, his was on TV, and that was a little bit different, obviously, than, the way you might leave a job or someone else might leave a job or whatever. But it's also the NBA, so things are different, and that's to be expected. So I don't hate the guy. It's great to have him in LA. I'm not really a Laker fan. I'm more of a player fan, individual players, ever since I kind of stopped liking the Lakers back in, what was that, 88, 89, when they were losing to the when they were losing to the Pistons. I got a little upset, and then when they were playing the Bulls in the finals, that's where I really was pulling for LA, but that didn't come out the way I had hoped, and I ended up starting to like the Portland Trail Blazers at the time, and then moved on from them to the Rockets, and then from them to the San Antonio Spurs, and that's kind of been the team I've liked and respected over the last 20 years. Speaking of the Spurs, we're moving on to the next topic. Kawhi Leonard is now a Toronto Raptor. He got traded, and DeMar DeRozan is coming from Toronto over to San Antonio, and there's some other people and picks in place. I think that's a good move to get Kawhi out of San Antonio. The headlines I've seen, or some things I've seen, is that basically Toronto will be renting Kawhi Leonard for a year, which will be interesting because basically you're just going to have him for a year. He's not going to re-sign with you because he probably doesn't want to play in Toronto. And so, but at least you're getting rid of someone who obviously does not want to be there. It's been very obvious he doesn't want to be there. And if that's what it takes, then so be it. So you move on from that. And which is just interesting to me because I look back and I look at the players that San Antonio's had over the last 20 or so years, from David Robinson to your Tony Parkers, your Ginobilis, your Tim Duncans, and obviously the head coach Greg Popovich, who doesn't really take any shit from media. He won't answer stupid questions, and I think the media does ask stupid questions a lot, or they ask very probing questions. It's like, I'm the coach. I'm not going to tell you what my game plan is. That's dumb. Why would I want to give you the information that I'm using to win this game, and then you can take it and then put it out there and then critique it, or the information gets out there and goes to the other team or whatever it is? It's just, media asks stupid questions, and I get that's what they're trying to do is, get their hot takes and, sell their papers or people, or sell clicks, whatever. But it's just kind of ridiculous to me. So I'm with him, and I'm with Bill Belichick with not answering stupid questions, because they're stupid and they're a waste of time, and I'm not telling you what I'm thinking. But anyway, it's just interesting that Kawhi would not be able to get along with that team, because there have been so many respectable players out of there over the last 20 years, and it's sad. I kind of hoped that he would have been a part of the next generation, I guess, of Spurs players, or really good Spurs players, or future Hall of Fame Spurs players. I don't know if Joel William Parker will go, but we already know that obviously David Robinson, I believe he's already in, and Tim Duncan will definitely go. He's only been gone for a couple years, but I think there's a 5-year waiting time, and then you can get in. But anyway, so yeah, it's sad that he's not going to be able to be there, but props to him for at least getting out of a situation he didn't want to be in. Same thing with the Spurs too. They didn't want to have him anymore. I think they didn't believe that his issue regarding his injury was actually legit, and that maybe he was just kind of nursing it a little bit, or just was mad. I think that Ginobili and Parker had come out and said that they didn't believe his injury was really all that serious for him to still be out. And well, that's kind of a dick thing to say. I don't know what sparked them to say it, whether it was Popovich, whether it was the organization, whether it was just their own personal thoughts. It would be hard to go back to that. I do understand that. But just me on a personal pride thing, like if I love the game so much, then I'm going to go back and play. If I really am hurt physically, and then they hurt my feelings, that's another thing. But if I really can go back and I'm actually just not, and I'm using their words as an excuse, then that's kind of bitch made as far as I'm concerned. But it is what it is. So anyway, he's not there anymore. They're moving on. Parker's not even there anymore. I think he's on the Pelicans or somebody. I don't know. He just got signed the other day or last week. So it looks like teams are moving on. Ginobili will probably not be there in the next year or two. So it's just going to be kind of starting all over and kind of rebuilding your team there, which will be difficult, but it happens. It happens every era, right? I mean, Duncan's gone, Robinson's gone. Duncan had to take over for Robinson, and then Kawhi and Parker and Ginobili were picking up where Duncan had left off, even though they'd already been there with him. But that's part of the game. It's a game. It's a business, and you got to move on sometimes, and that's what happens. Speaking of happenings, this came out last month. There was a video of a lady. No. Let's go back. It wasn't of the lady so much as it was it was like two kids kind of running around a museum a little bit. And if you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. It's one thing for kids. I mean, these kids were probably between 4 and 6, maybe 7 years old. They're pretty small compared to me. But anyway, so these kids are kind of running around a little bit, and I would think the museum, the gallery, art gallery, whatever, would have some kind of security or someone in the area to say, "Hey, kids, slow down," or "Stop jumping around," or whatever it is. I'm not blaming the gallery per se, because if you're going to have kids in there, that means the parent got the kids in there. And if the parent got the kids in there, where was the parent while the kids were running around? That's a big question. So if you see the video, you can see the mom or caretaker, whoever she was, sitting in a chair. I think she was reading a book. And the boys are, which is interesting. Why would you go to a museum and sit down and read a book? I don't understand. It just perplexes me. If I'm going to a museum, I'm going to look at the art. I'm going to go look at the paintings. I'm going to go look at the sculptures, the whatevers, right? There's an art gallery, the Village Gallery, actually, down in Irvine, that I check out from time to time. And I don't go in there, sit down, and read books. I go in there and I look at the paintings from Fabian Perez or Michael Goddard or Kincaid or whomever that they have on display. Typically, it's those three and some other people, too. But yeah, it's just really weird why you would go to a museum or art gallery and not be paying attention to your kids, and then 2, be reading. And then 3, not call your kids out or whoever they are to you when they're running around, because it almost seems like to me, I would be able to hear that, because she wasn't far from them. She's probably 20 feet from them. So if I'm 20 feet from someone, I'm going to be able to hear them if they're running around or jumping around or whatever it was. So with that being said, one of the kids ended up climbing up on something, grabbing a piece of, or one of the pieces of art, like part of a sculpture or something like that, and then it fell down and it broke. And then people go over and then want to deal with the issue. And I think to myself, this should have already been handled. Excuse me, I have a phone call to decline real quick. This should have already been handled way before this ever happened. And the follow-up was that the museum was not going to sue the mom. I guess it was the mom, yeah. Was not going to sue the parent, but was going to go after their insurance company. I don't know what kind of insurance they could have regarding that, but still it is what it is. Going to go after the insurance company. And people were trying to say that they blame the museum for not putting everything in a glass case or in a this or a that. But it's one of those things like with the old Harambe thing that happened a couple years back. Um, if this has never happened, then I shouldn't have to worry about it. Does that mean in the future I'm going to have to put everything behind a glass case or this or that? Like, maybe you should just watch your kids. Or maybe what I'll do in the future is put people in certain areas to make sure that artwork is not being messed with and played with when it shouldn't be played with, obviously, because it's artwork. It's not up there to be played with. So if I'm the museum, I'm going to at least do that. I'm going to employ somebody or a few people, depending on the rooms or whatever, to watch the art and make sure people aren't messing around and call parents out for screwing around. And maybe not have chairs for people to sit down either, because, I mean, why the hell would you go to a gallery and want to sit down away from the art? It just doesn't make any sense. So, just my thinking on that one. I totally blame the parent. I think you should have been watching your kid or kids. And if you're going to go to a gallery, maybe you want to have your kids on a leash if they're not going to do what they should be doing. Also, last month, there was this new show called The Proposal. And it kind of was like a fast version of The Bachelor, except you don't get to see the actual person. Okay, so there's like maybe 20 women or whatever, and the guy can see the gals, I believe, but they can't see him. And I only watched one episode because I thought this is stupid. But I figured I'd check it out anyway. So they can't see him, but he can see them, and he can hear them talk about, what their interests are, and he can talk to them, and, they're kind of talking back and forth. He asks a question. Each of them will answer something, whatever. The first round, there were some people cut out because maybe he didn't find them attractive, or maybe their background, whatever they were about, where they lived or whatever their job wasn't attractive to him, so he cut them, and then he moved on to the next round and the next group of women. And so he would ask questions, every round or whatever, and essentially he did ask something about, was it about sex? I think something was about sex, and one of the gals, it was down to like 3 by the, towards the end, and one of the gals answered, and I guess was a little more conservative than he had hoped, and I knew she was going to get cut just by her answer, and she sure did get cut. And then it was down to the 2 gals, and the one I would hope would stay single did not stay single, and he ended up proposing to her. And one of the questions he had asked was about, oh, maybe that's what the question was, and that's why she got cut. It was about a handicap. He said, would you date somebody who, didn't have all their limbs or something like that? And I think the gal was like, nope. And so, yeah, she got cut, because this dude, I think he was ex-military and had lost a leg, had a leg amputated or something like that, but still was able to go hiking and do all those things that he'd love to do. But yeah, she got cut, man. But anyway, so he asked out the prettiest girl, and so I don't know how that's all going to work out. I know I was just watching the Colin Cowherd show this morning, and he was talking about The Bachelor's been on for, 22 years or something like that, and there's only one couple that's still together. So these dating shows, these marriage proposal shows and stuff like that, they're not going to work because people aren't getting to know each other. That's why one of the last shows I did, giving people ideas for free dates and different things, so that way you're not doing the same thing over and over and over again. Because if you keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, you know what's going to happen? The same result. It's just what it is. It's a numbers game, so to speak. So you got to try something different if you want a different result. What else can we talk about? Let's see. I was going to talk about politics, but that's just going to make me angry because, that shit's dumb. Yeah. I've seen a lot of movies recently. There's a lot of movies I want to still see. I'm actually going to do another show probably in a couple days regarding the movie. You know what? Actually, I'll talk about those right now. That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the movies I really want to see. I did recently see the Mr. Rogers one. I think it's called Will You Be My Neighbor or Won't You Be My Neighbor? Nice little documentary about Mr. Rogers and how at a time when people weren't allowing black people to hang out in pools. They weren't letting them swim. Black people typically weren't cops, and there were issues regarding policing in black neighborhoods, issues with people accepting homosexuality, like a lot of different things this man would tackle. And like one of the guys that he hired, this dude, they had him on a few times throughout the documentary, talking about how he was black, he was gay, and Mr. Rogers had episodes or segments of episodes where he had the dude who was playing a cop, so that kind of dealt with that stigma. And he also had the dude's feet in a little wading pool, like the little kiddie pools that people buy at the grocery stores or whatever. Just to show like nothing bad is going to happen if you have a black person have their feet or their body in the same pool as a white person. And these are the kind of things this guy would tackle, and he knew the guy was gay, even though Mr. Rogers was a Christian. He didn't, denounce him and tell him he couldn't be on the show anymore or anything like that, like some people would do. He just accepted him, and that was it. And I find Mr. Rogers to be a very loving man. There was one clip from the trailer that I saw that really made me want to go to it, which was just the part where this little girl, which they actually show very early in the movie, this little girl goes up to Mr. Rogers and tells him that she likes him. Just very simple, just Mr. Rogers? He says yes, and she says, I like you. It was just really cute, and just my background having worked in daycare and preschools and stuff like that, and after school programs, it's cool to get those kind of things happen. It's very sweet and touching. So I could relate to that one when that little scene happened. But also, what was really cool was that he went before Congress to get funding or to maintain funding for his program or for PBS and stuff like that. And he had to really sell it. And it was just amazing that he was able to do that and win the hearts of Congress over when Congress typically has no heart. And so the dude's just a solid guy. There was never anything like, secret, like he had secret affairs or secret children or secret Nazi or something like that. Nothing. At least nothing in that documentary. So yeah, just seems like a really solid guy, really nice guy. Movies that are coming out that I really want to see. I just heard about Sorry to Bother You. I gotta check that out. Talking to my cousin and a buddy of mine the other day about that movie. I've wanted to see it already because Boots Riley, who was a member of the rap group The Coup from the Bay Area, he went from rapping to directing, and I'm super proud of people who can move from one career when it kind of dies out to another career. Fred Durst does that too. He does direction. Obviously, Ice Cube has his thing. Who else is doing stuff? Is it Dr. Dre, I think, is directing stuff. I think, matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, he helped direct the NWA movie. So I'm all for it. But yeah, so I got to see that movie. There's another movie called Black Klansman, which I think is a true story where a black person calls up the local KKK chapter, and David Duke was the head of it, and he pretends to be a white man over the phone, and then they have another white guy in the police force. Oh, because this guy's a cop, the black dude's a cop, and he has another white dude in the police force pretend to actually be that person in person, just to infiltrate the KKK and catch them committing crimes or whatever. So it looks really interesting. Spike Lee does it, and I think it'll be out in the next month or so. A really corny movie that I'm really into seeing that has nothing to do with race, but just has to do with Jason Statham, because I like him as an actor. I think he does great action stuff, the Transporter movies, and I haven't seen The Expendables yet, but I'm sure I will at some point. But he's going to be in the movie The Meg, about the Megalodon, the extinct shark that was like huge, like the biggest shark that ever existed. So yeah, the opening in the trailer is like this little girl playing in like this underground aquarium, and you see kind of the silhouette kind of emerge from the back behind this girl in this aquarium, a huge mouth or a huge shark or whatever, and then all of a sudden it takes a bite out of the aquarium. It doesn't actually break the glass, but it does shatter in certain places, or breaks in certain places. And so the whole everyone in like the building is like, oh my God, what was that? Then they go and check on the little girl, and she's fine. But they do see that, something bit this huge mark out of the aquarium window, or whatever you want to call it. So it looks corny as fuck. It's like a new age Jaws essentially, but still I got to see it. I'm not gonna lie. I also got to see Skyscraper, the new Rock movie. I think that's out right now or it's coming out this weekend. Got to see that one. The two of the ones I really, really, really got to see, and I'll tell you one about a documentary I saw a couple weeks ago too. But The Nun and the new Halloween movie. I've seen the trailer for The Nun. Looks scary. There's a jump scare in the trailer that really works for me. And it's part of the whole The Conjuring and the Annabelle series. The whole thing kind of just, maybe this might be the end, or maybe there's going to be an Annabelle 3 or a Conjuring 3. I have no idea. I don't know how many more movies they're going to make. I enjoy watching the movies though. So The Nun came up in the Annabelle The Beginnings or whatever it was called. It came out, I think it was last year. Really good movie, by the way. Probably the scariest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. But yeah, the Nun came up in that. Oh wait, no, she actually came up in The Conjuring too. My bad. That's right, she did. And I think she came up in Annabelle 2 as well. So either way, whenever she came up, it was scary as hell. I remember the scene where the lady walks into the study and she sees the shadow walking across the wall and goes into the painting of the nun, and then it comes running out after her. It was just, oh my god, that was such an intense scene. Such an intense scene. I loved it though. So I can't wait to see that, and also the Halloween 2018 movie. So it's not, picking up where Resurrection left off, which actually, for me personally, would be nice to see some finality to the series, the original series, even though it's like different worlds kind of thing going on. I don't know. But this Halloween 2018 is basically picking up from where Halloween 1 left off. And I don't know how they're going to end it, because apparently Michael got caught after Halloween 1 for this Halloween 2018 movie. And so he's been locked up for however many years. Which I don't really think that's how they would do it, unless he was like really mentally unstable. But anyway, yeah, because he killed like 1, 2, 3. Let me see. He killed the guy with the truck. He killed Annie. He killed the other 2 babysitter people, and he killed, I forget, maybe 4, maybe a 5th person too. I forget. But anyway, so yeah, maybe they probably would have had him in prison for 40 years. Actually, that might have worked. But anyway, and then of course attempted murder for other people as well. So, yeah. But anyway, so this is picking up where Halloween 1 left off. So there is no, Michael Myers being Jamie Lee Curtis's character's brother or stepbrother or anything like that. It's just, I don't know what the connection will be, but I'm very intrigued to see it. Can't wait. And the other movie that I really wanted to see, which I did see a couple weeks ago, I saw Whitney, the documentary, but the other documentary I saw was Three Identical Strangers. It is an amazing story that has highs and deep lows. Your emotions will run the gambit for whatever, 90 minutes, 2 hours. It starts off on a very high note where one of the three, so it's about 3 triplets, or a set of triplets, who are separated after 6 months of living. So they were born, they were put up for adoption, and they were all adopted by separate families, 3 separate families, all in the, I believe, in the state of New York, and kind of like within like 100-mile radius of each other too. But one of them, this whole thing doesn't even happen unless one of them goes to the college that one of the other ones had just left. So one had left the college and said he wasn't coming back, and then the other one goes to that same college like several months later, and people are like, oh, I thought you said you weren't coming back. And he was like, what are you talking about? I've never been here before. And that's how the whole movie starts in the first couple of minutes, as they're retelling the story. And when you understand why when they reveal why they were adopted and how they were adopted, it's such a sinister, like, I understood the purpose of it, but the execution is where it falls off, and just like, you're just like, what? Why would you do it that way? So To me, there's a little bit of evil and a little bit of deceit, a little bit, a lot of it, really, and it caused a lot of damage, I think, to the boys and to the families and things like that. They're all now adults. Matter of fact, if you can't make it to the movies, you can check out Megyn Kelly has a show on I think it's NBC, but she has there's a YouTube channel for her show, and she had the brothers on, I think, yeah, about a week ago. She had them on, and the journalist who started breaking the stories and stuff like that of how they were adopted and everything. So you can check that out on the YouTube. There's 3 different segments. One is like 20, another one's like 10, and another one's like 10. So 3 different segments. So it's so yeah. If you can't make a 90-minute movie, if you got kids, or you're just too busy, or you don't have Movie Pass, get it. Then yeah, you can definitely check out the YouTube clips, and you get this whole. You still get the whole gist of the story. You get to understand everything. You just don't have the same. It doesn't have the same emotional impact, and I think that's part of what makes the movie so good. The documentary is so good, is just the emotional impact through every little bit of the story that you hear about. And are there other movies coming out this year? Slenderman, I want to see that one. I first heard about that when I worked in a group home some years back. Kids were talking about Slenderman, and he was real, kind of like the Boogeyman, almost like the Babadook kind of thing. I want to see that one. Is there another movie I want to see? I can't remember. I think that was it for all the movies I really wanted to see. The Whitney Houston documentary was really good too. Definitely worth checking out if you don't remember everything about her career, or you just don't know about her career. I think it's a very interesting documentary. It explains a lot of things, and especially kind of when the drug issue actually started, and maybe even why the drug issue started. Not just because someone gave it to her, but maybe her internal reasoning as to why she needed to medicate, so to speak. It wasn't just for fun, in my opinion. After watching that, it wasn't just for fun. But anyway, so that's my take on movies. That's my take on LeBron, and that is my take on the museum and watching your damn kids. Anyway, you can check me out, KJ from OC on Twitter, KJ from OC Podcast on Facebook, and KJ from OC on Instagram, and of course this YouTube channel, which